Hello future tech leaders, I am Sindhuja. Based on my own experience, I know that learning the right skills can shape our future. What if I say learning was as thrilled as the tech world itself? There we go. A cloud foundation, that's exactly what you will experience. From day one, you will be immersed in the interactive sessions and expert-led courses that covers most of the widely used technologies in the zone of data science to cloud computing, which brings more light to the life of a techie. I'm so excited to help you and unlock the true potential of a technology. Well, then why to wait? Let's see what it unfolds.
You can open both the connection and connect operation. Username is this. Yes, username and password is down there. And the operation. Let me see. Can you come out? Just run the test once. I'm ready. Click on cancel and run test. It is running fully. You can see this, but I'm not receiving the mail. Just wait. Show me the host here. Connection data host. After message ID subject. Match this value. I'm using this broadcast stream and if you would do a SMTP here, your server is missing. I'm going to go to the server, scroll down. And what was the error it was showing there in your server? Let me open it. What is sender signatures? What is it? Sender signatures. Oh no, I have not configured them. It is. It was the error was about that in the application. Might need to configure that. No, but I haven't found any specific option for that. On the top, you see server. Wait, there is sender signatures. Add that domain or signature. Another phone. No, the email address you are sending email from. Add that here. And you have to use this email address only. No, don't give at the rate gmail.com. It is only at the rate mrotex.com. Remove at the rate. Now this will work. Create signature. I think they have also given one to me. I can copy paste that as well. If you scroll back, you can just use this once. Run using this and we will see. Each time, you do not need to go back once. Click cancel. Every time, you don't need to click on the connector. You will see two lines SMTP mail connection mail oprex. You can directly click on those below the connector shape. You can directly open your operations like this. Thank you. Now open that. Check the server. Server. My first server. Go to activity. Statistic. Don't use this. Use SendGrid. I was going to log into SendGrid, but I wasn't able to. There seems to be an issue with it. Why? I think they only take corporate emails. I was trying with Gmail and they denied it. Kinder denied it. Today we will look at another important topic. That is catching. Catching is another approach we use to perform a lookup. Suppose you have your source system as suppose Workday where you are receiving employee data. You have another payroll application ADP. It has your payroll data. Now this will have your employee ID and all of its information like personal info, job info, compensation info. You can say something like learning info. All of this information is there. ADP payroll data. That is another system which handles your salary processing towards month end and all these calculations. It will have your employee ID and your salary info. Now you are using another tool, HCML. You are using SAP's Human Capital Management tool. This is your source, this is your lookup. This is your target. Here you are sending employee data where you are combining compensation and salary info. Now, if you are simply doing a design, you will put up a source Workday connector where you are fetching all the employee data. Then again, you have also called up. You have set up another connector for A, B where you are fetching payroll data. But how do you know you are fetching data against what ID of employee? Because it will have lakhs of records. It will also have lakhs of records. It can fetch something different and it can fetch something different. One of them needs to be in sync with the other. That you only fetch the restricted data and you do not want to fetch everything and store it here in Boomi. That will like shoot up your memory temporarily and throw the error. You just want to fetch information and perform a lookup and use the salary information in conjecture to this compensation info. There comes into play caching, where against this employee ID, you will have your connector call. You will fetch the salary information you will store in a cache. And in your map shape, you will do a lookup from that cache against this employee ID, quickly able to process the data and push it to target. How the compensation and salary info are related in this example. Compensation info is in general. Your salary information say it is 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs, 40 lakhs, but salary info is when was it paid for? How many days was your salary processed? Were there any leaves? I see, thank you. Your tax calculation, all that information. We are hoping to merge the data between these two sources and only take salary info from payroll data. We do not want every information. We just want, for example, ADP. Have multiple rows, have multiple columns of different type of information, and we just need the salary info. We are having a lookup based on the employee ID kind of join. You will receive all the information alongside salary info, but you can restrict it to just pick up salary info. Your understanding is on that. Thank you. How do we build this? Let's build some sample data first. We have this now. I'm going to miss a shape for now. Click. Let's change this. Instead of salary, there is a tax instead of department. What else can we modify it to? It's just a loose one. Before this, I'll just show you how it happens since we do not have a connector data. I'll just give you outlook how it would look in general. Remove the ADP. Let's use this something meaningful. Just to give you like the design pattern understanding, you would start your process from your connector source, connector vertex. You would configure it to fetch your employee data. Once you receive that, you would use DDP here, dynamic document property, to extract employee ID from each received employee document. Now you will set up a branch because you want to fetch the payroll data only of these employees. How many ever you receive here? 5, 10, 100, 2000 for that particular run. Store it in a cache, and in this map shape you want to use both of these data sources. That is why we use a branch shape. Now it comes to the branch. In your first branch, you took this kind of payroll connection. Say it is on this 0 system where against this employee ID, you will pass it in the parameters here and fetch the payroll information. Once you have received this, until this point, you will be receiving the workday data. From this point on, you will be receiving the data from this connector. This data processing will stop here. Now, once you have received the data from this 0 system, you will store it in a document cache. Now, your payroll information is here and your employee information is also coming here. This is stored. Now it will come down to second branch. Since your branch is coming from this pathway, it will be receiving the workday data. You got your workday data here in your map shape. I will show it later. You will be against that employee ID. You will be fetching data from retrieving the data from cache. Then you will have two profiles in your map on the left side and your target profile on the side. That is the common design pattern. Is that clear? You have your Workday source system where you configure it to receive your employee data. All this information, personal info, all of this silly part of this information. From this, you will do an extraction using dynamic document property where you will say emp. Here you will select profile element and from that you will extract this employee ID of the incoming data. Then you will set up a branch in your first branch against these employee IDs. You want to first fetch the payroll information and store it to use it later for all the transformation logics. If you don't do that, if you set up connector call each time you just want to use it, it will be a lot of cost and time consuming. What do? In the first branch, in the start of the process itself against this employee, ID you connect to this 0 connector. You fetch your payroll information against this employee ID. You pass this as a parameter request parameter here. I am calling your system, give me the payroll information for this employee ID. Is this clear until here? Now you store this information you receive from payroll information in a cache. It's essentially your local database in Boomi itself, cache. Now this is stored here. This single flow pipeline, it stops here. Once the first branch is done now, it will come down to second branch. Second branch is also receiving this data. This word date there. In your map shape, now you will have two profiles. Your CSV employees. Now against this, you will add cache data. We haven't enabled. You will see cached profile. You can select your payroll profile here. That will also be a CSV or JSON, and you will choose indexes your employee ID. That will list down those fields which are coming in from 0. You may return it. We have used branch here, and we have used branch because we have two separate documents coming from two separate connectors. It would have been a single flow. We have, I believe, after the workday data, we have the payroll data. I believe we will miss that workday data. Then we have to save it somewhere. Then there is another approach to it. It would be something like this directly. Now in your map shape, you would use connector call directly. Here you will use the 0 connector. Get operation. Input, you will pass employee ID, and output, you will take salary. Now problem with this approach is inside map. Any connector call, if you are using it, takes lot of time. And your logic transformations will just be limited to this map shape. Whereas if you use fetch the data and start itself here, you will not. In general, you would not only have a map shape, you will have lot of other business rules, decision shapes, and everything. There also, you can use the data in conjecture. That is the point of having this. And generally, this is using how we do it using branch operator. Can you go to the process? When we are getting the employee data and then we are saving the data into a set property. We are not saving this data here anywhere. No, only employee ID, I would not say. There must be multiple employee ID which is saving in a single variable. They are saving one by one. Yes, that's what I told you about dynamic document property. It's like a separate variable with associated with each other each document ID. It may look like in front end. Do you like employee IDD, pure variable name? But in back end, it points to each document has its own document ID behind the scenes. Basically, each document has a document ID associated to it. What this DDP does it. Rather than storing all the variables in a list kind of thing, it points to that particular document ID. If suppose your first document would point to the first one, then again for the second one, it would become something like this. That way it does not restrict it to storing it in a single variable. It kinds of points to the document ID, and behind the scenes, it's a big variable name. I believe it also traverses through for each document ID to the flow. It's basically a variable is using pointers in association with this document. Wherever your document will go, that variable will stay attached only to that document. The other connector is called multiple times. If this is the case, here when we are extracting the employee ID, for example, let we have 5 employee data that we have 5 employee ID. Then it will go to the payroll connector 5 times to match those data, or how it will. It will go to 5 times, but your connection will be open only once for the first time. It will be like API calls one by one. We get the data one by one. Isn't it cache data get overridden or something? It's a new flow in the database with each employee ID. Got. Since we are saving data in our cache, is there a limit to it? Let's check that. Documents are indexed. Let's Google that and see. Are in documents, document caches. Documents and indexes are stored to disk within the Atom directory. There is no size limit on document caches. It is limited to the space that you have available. Using document in Atom Cloud caches within the depot. There is no limit, but you can set up the limit using Atom management. Basically, it's limited to the cloud you will buy. It will have certain sizes, RAM, processing power, and everything. If you see account is used, this is the limit. You can go up to this. Let's convert to GB. We have roughly like 5 to 2 GB basically. 500 GB disk associated with our account. And if the process completes, the cache data will be removed. Yes. One more question. After the caching the data, if I need to retrieve the data, there is another save, retrieve cache. If I use it in the second branch, in that case there are 2 documents which are flowing to the flow. What happened in that case? Can we use, the value that we get from retrieve cache and set it to a DDP and then use it in our map sheet? Just give me a moment. Sorry. When you do a retrieve, you will retrieve it against the employee ID. Now going forward, you will have your payroll information here. Your employee data flow will stop here. Now we have the data flow. Then you will not be able to utilize this data unless you store this somewhere. It doesn't make sense like this. Then you could have simply gone with the single pipeline here. Once you have fetched payroll information, you would have built it in a single pipeline. What you can do is add another branch. This is how your design pattern would be in that case. Where you know you are retrieving it from cache. Performing another set of action here using the payroll information as main. And then again, if you want to send it to another connector or something, some SFTP server or report kind of thing, you do that and this action on the payroll information stops here. Then you continue with your main data processing. That is how you have a use case like this, where you are using retrieve as well. But if we are on the same branch, then we do not need to use the retrieve as a document and flowing on a single line. Any other questions? No, Rishi, none from myself. Take a break for 10 minutes. Then we will start with some data practice on this. We will store this to be our main data. This will be our cache data and we will see how it behaves. Now I will not delete all this. Let's bring it down here. Let's enact it as using a message shape. Let's just say this is your Workday employee data. Let's add a branch. Let's add another message shape where it says ADP salary data. Let's enter this information. Add a map shape here. Let's use add to cache. Save this as ADP CSV. Let's configure this. Let's just save it. In our process where it is demo catching, let's add that profile. It's a flat file. Create employee ID first name. Now, always remember to correct this information, otherwise your file will not be processed. Add the delimiter file type and column headers. This is done. Now let's come back to cache. Let's select this profile. Add index. Index would be employee ID. Add the value. If you enable this checkmark, enforce one index entry per document. If you see there are 2001 IDs, it will throw error for the second one because it is assuming that there should only be one employee. ID unique employee ID. If it's a repetitive one, it will reject this one. Let's see the behavior. Now this is done. We'll come back at it. Let's see if it's able to cache the data or not. Let's remove this one now. You see, it says it only allows one entry per document in a given index. It says multiple document entries were produced for index employee ID. Let's see if it's able to cache the data or not. Let's see if it's able to cache the data or not. This is how you control duplicates in your process. If someone is asking you, how do you handle duplicates? You say you handle document catching, and in document catching enabling, enforce one index entry per document. That is how this will be controlled, and you will not be able to further process that data set. You would reject the second document entry. Now there are two approaches to it. If you uncheck this, it will store both the information, which is not the ideal scenario. What you can do is you can add another index value in conjecture that it builds the index on this full name like 1001 Bob Johnson, 1001 John Doe. That whole thing becomes an index. Does it make sense? Yes, it does, and I believe there is also an element of checking unique values. When we create profiles like JSON or CSV profiles, there is an option of marking out field as unique. Yes, but then that will only work for flat files. What if this is a JSON and data XML data? Don't we have the same option for JSON? I assume that we have option for JSON and XML as well. We only have checked for unique values and flat files only. For JSON and XML or for any other format, we can utilize the catch data for at least IDs which are supposed to be unique. That's correct. If the only workaround could be used for checking unique values, or do we have any other options as well? No, that is the approach for it. The install is like building up logics. That's unnecessarily complicated. Easiest and most cleanest approach is using catching. Now let's add another index. In the same index value, again we do not want multiple ones. If I use two indexes, then I'll have to pass them. Now I am linking my first name and employee ID against this emp id1. Now let's come out. Let's run it and see how it behaves. If I uncheck this, let's see the behavior. It catched the data now. All of these are now stored. And if you look at the second one, you'll only see the workday data here. That data flow stopped here. Now about checking this, and if you enable this check and if you get error, you use a try catch and throw the error to your source stream. You are sending duplicates. Duplicate entries. Fix that in your source system. That is how you do it. We changed the index to employee ID plus first name. Why it failed? Because it had preference for employee in this order. but it will be too separate. No, it will still be separate. Let's come to mapship. I'll show you how it would behave. We are assuming for it, like we use combine multiple columns to create a primary key, something like that. But in that case, if it was like a primary key, then it would have become a single thing and it doesn't have a priority. I assume like if employee ID is same, then it checks for the name as well. That works a little differently. Let me show that. We'll come at it step by step. At cache data, choose this cache index. If you want that, the other approach is let me remove this for now. I'll add another index. Name it as first name. I'll choose first name here. Let's see how it behaves now. Let's see how it behaves now. It is not allowed to store it this way. If you want to, if it is expected you would have multiple entries with the same ID, then you need to uncheck that box always. That is how it functions. But then when you are performing a lookup, you add multiple indexes to do a performer lookup in from your different. Here you can have, another kind of data set as to use in conjecture with it. You can have multiple indexes. But that is how it is bound to function. Does it make sense? We cannot create a unique key there if we checkmark this. We cannot. If we are enforcing that one index entry per document, then we need to make sure that we are only receiving the unique data. Or we can use try crash block there to send that. We have the duplicate entry. But we cannot combine columns to create a unique value. You can. That is what we are doing now. But then we need to move the check here this way and we need to control it using a combination like this. Not a rect. Without the check. Now, once this is done, I will come to if we do not create this combined key or we just left the check unchecked. In that case, we can also process the document without any delay. But then the map shape will throw error. It says 001. It will not know which one to give it for. We are doing it for the map shape it will. To perform the exact lookup, we are doing it, basically. I will come here, add cache data now. I will choose this. Now it will give me the exact record against that employee ID and first name. Now let's also take the XML profile from here. Let's do a copy. Whenever you are performing copy component action, copying it from one folder to another, always ensure you uncheck this copy component dependence. It's always an oversight majority times and it causes a lot of issues. What it does is, it will if you checkmark this and copy it. If you are playing around with the profile in any of your integration folder, wherever you copied it from there, also it will get impacted and changed. Ensure you never checkmark this, that both profiles stay independent of each other. Got? Now this is copied. Let's close this. Let's choose the profile. Let's open demo caching. Select the one from here. Let's open this subtitle. Let's say leaves used. Let's just say ensure it's all characters. Now we can play around with this information. I'll map it. Let's do a string concatenation delimiter would be this. Input would be first name, again last name. I would map these both. Let's do some other functions. String to upper. Let's not do that. String. Let's perform a trim function as well. Fix to length 6. We'll do a direct mapping of salary. Now leaves information I'll use from here. Tags, I'll pick it up from this. Let's use a numeric function where math subtract where my salary will come here and value to subtract would become this and result will go into tax salary. Now let's come here, connect it back. Let's see how it all behaves. If we are able to test it successfully or not. Let's see what information are we getting here. We got this employee, we got name, we got department job title. We trimmed it from the side, salary leaves, used tax, salary 2,300 minus 1,400. We got the exact output 10,900. That is how caching works. You had your data from one source, from another source. You used it in a third place. Now it's important. Let's look at log as well. Your mapship started for the first function. It took the concatenation, it performed the concatenation, you got your output here. Then you had your string to upper, it changed the value. Then you had character trim, it performed the trim. Then input one value to 2,000 value to subtract the tax. It performed the action. We got our output. Then similarly, it kept on continuing for other profiles. Is this clear? I see the in-cache cache, that the column that we have created by combining those two attributes. It didn't create another, let's say, element in our profile. I didn't get your question. We have created that unique value in order to perform the lookup. If you look at this edit cache data, we chose both that combination employee id and first name to search. Now let's remove this and see what would have happened if we had not done it. Let's see what are the number of outputs do we have for now. Did you see? This is a problem. There is duplicacy now in our outputs. In the case now, there should be 2 documents for one id. One small question. When you are mapping the cache data and profile to the employee profile, the index that you give is the index for employee data or the cache data. Like, can you go to the mapped shape? You open something from the added cache data. Here the keys that you are given. This is from the employee profile. And these employee profiles keys are got mapped to the cache data index. That's correct. Thank you. I was just confirming. Thank you. Ritu, how did you pass those keys to the map? Can you show it again? I might have missed it. In the map here, I came to these elements. Click on Add Cache Data. Choose the cache. Choose this. Then against the CSV employee record, I chose employee aid. You performed this on the employee or the first name. Employee. Because we wanted that to be unique. That's why. Thank you. Whatever the index we give in the cache, it is the index for that particular cache data. It is not the index for the document which we are enforcing. One index per document. That's correct. Indexing is basically for searching with the other data set. You want to perform this lookup on. There, you are just marking it as that. I receive one more question. For example, we do not want to map any value in our target profile, and let's say we want to let that element to be empty or null. Can we do it? Because I believe I have tried it and the result I have got. I was converting JSON to XML or something. The result I have got. I didn't receive that element in my output result. I mean they have it removed from the result if I have not mapped it to any value. There is another thing to play at there. Now how this tag functions is. If you enable this, it will generate a blank tag basically to give in your output profile. Otherwise, if there are no values, if it is 0, if there is no value coming in for employee ID, it will skip this tag. That's what was happening. It was not populating or it was not even there in the output. You control that using min occurs equals to 1 or 0. It's 1, then it will put a blank space there. A blank tag. Thank you, yes. Now let's see employee ID enforce one index entry per document in catch. We are storing this and in map against employee ID. Let's see. How it behaves now. Let's run the test. Yes, it has index in both of the employee ID. They become a common key. It got rejected, failed. Temporarily, let's remove that row. Let's just change it to 1003 here, but in source we will still have it as 1001. Let's see how it behaves now. Let's see if this will help it or not. We will perform a split and then store. Let's see how it behaves now. Everything worked. If you look at this, it was your data set here. Everything came here. Now everything is working correctly. Ensure you are using split before storing your cache data. Otherwise, it will treat this whole thing as one document. You need to have a split that each one is treated individually and correctly. Previously, you saw we had like multiple profiles, like 10, 20 outputs. We got what it was doing is without split against this 1001, it was taking all of these values, all 6, then performing the action. Then against next 1002, it was taking all of these and then performing the action. That went wrong. Now these documents were split. It was treating each one as a separate document and just taking the exact employee ID. In the previous case, when we stored it as a single document rather than splitting it, just looked for the first Zolan one. It found the match, then it thought it needs to traverse through all the rows in that whole document, which is wrong. It should only be going for the first row. That is why you need to split up before adding to a cache. This is not the infected behavior. Which one? The one that you explained, like went to every document for the next one. It was not expected behavior previously because we did not perform a split action. We just stored this whole document as a single document here in the cache. But the workday data we are getting is also yes. But when it is performing the catch check here, it will only fetch on this first row. When it is performing catch check, it will only fetch that single document. You don't need to set up split there. It automatically splits it up in the map shape based on the key that we have generated. If we have not generated the key, let's say the payroll data we have also. The payroll data is also unique and we have not generated the key. In that case, it will again for each of the document, even if we use the split. Then it will not be able to perform action without key. Key is mandatory. When we are going to look up for two different sources, key is always mandatory. We cannot just dump two data sources in the same pipeline without having a link to each other. Yes, correct. You want me to explain this? I am clear. Now you only have your 6 profiles. If we come back, remove the split, just run the test. Look at the number of documents that will increase after map. It is not able to index. We need to have the split action. That is mandatory. If you did not, then you need to remove this check and add another profile element key. But then again, it will end up traversing through all of this each row, which would be incorrect. Ideal design pattern for this. You are splitting it. You are enabling enforce index entry per document And in map against, you are fetching the catch data against this employee's CSV employee ID, which will give you the exact output, which is essential basically. Now it is something similar to what we saw above. If you just replace your message with Workday connector, this message with 0, we had the payroll one. We just need to add a split, then your map shape here. Now, if you want to use retrieve as well, just to see the action, let's do a retrieve. Either I can retrieve all documents or, based on the employee ID from the Workday connector, I can restrict to just those elements. We have both options. It's always recommended to go with this, fetching it against an ID that you do not have the whole dump. Unless you want to process the whole dump, then only you go for that approach. Let's add another shape. Let's do current data here. Let's do this. Let's do combine into single message. Let's use our data process instead of this. It will be easier. Combine. Let's do a combine documents. File. Retain first line as columnar. Now we have these many records. Let's just remove to now. Let's test run and see how it behaves. From Workday, we have 6 employee IDs now, but in the payroll data, we have data only for first 4. Tree from cache. You should only see the first 4. ID. Do you know why this happened? We only received 1. Because it only checked for first one. It saw it as a match and gave us the output. It did not bother going through all of this. Fix for this is very simple. You understood the issue here. When it came for the cache lookup for retrieving from cache against the employee ID, it only checked for first one. It gave the output. It thought this is just a single document for this employee ID. It did not bother traversing through the others. We need to split it again, Rishi. If you add a split here, it will run it for each document. That will be troublesome. You add your split just on the third branch, that when it's traversing through, it performs the split only on this branch only. You do not want it to run it for at all branches. Does that make sense? Can we just use a message shape there and mark the combined document as if you just want to see the whole data? No, that would not do anything. It would still be same. Problem with the message shape is, let me show you the behavior of message shape as well. Then you will have to tweak it a bit more. You will get multiple header rows now. Now let's see. For every document there must be a header. Now if you look at it, you have your 6 documents, and if you see, we had now only like 4 in the A, D, P1. I had set up only 4 for catching. Now it is coming incorrectly. I just put up a blank message. Sorry. Let's just say combine into a single message. Take the current data. You look at it now. Let's see. This was the issue I was talking about. Now you got your output after using split. But if you use message shape instead of data process, because every record had this, what do you say? Headers. Headers. Combined, it will bring in each one individually. That is why you use data process for such combinations. And then you use a message shape to perform any transformation or additions on this data. That is how this works. Any question? We were here splitting the work group in the first branch. We were first splitting the work data into 6 documents. We are splitting it. We are splitting it only in third branch. If we split it here, each document will flow one by one. We do not want that. That will increase the performance, time, and not ideal way of doing it. We only perform a split action when it's absolutely necessary to perform some checks on each document individually. And I split on the ADP data we are using because this time we didn't use the unique query. And no, we always have to use before catching that each one gets stored individually rather than as one document belonging to employee IDs or in one. It will assume before adding the data into catch. Each row is treated individually. Thank you. That is all for today's session. And finally, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.